Hello again, this is Sapiens and I'm majicDave. So it was pretty unanimous that you preferred the new format where I actually sort of explain things as I go along. So that's what I'm continuing to do. Since the last video, I have implemented the birch tree sapling models and the pine tree sapling models. I thought, it was just sort of good to sort of flesh that out a little bit. I haven't done aspens yet, so you can plant them in this menu here. I'll probably group the different kind of tree types into a single icon in here, but for now they're all just separate, and then you can just plant them just like any other tree. The other thing I've done is to sort of tidy up the way that the whole sort of life cycle thing works. So now when they plant it, it'll just be a dirt without any sapling for a start. So we're in autumn now, and once basically the first, I think it's either spring or summer, it might depend on the tree type, but the first summer after you've planted it, it'll sprout up and become a sapling like that, and then it will need to be a sapling for a whole year before then progressing on to the next stage. And initially I was thinking that I might make the sapling model grow up a little bit over time and sort of have quite a few steps along the way. But again, it's more content to create, and I actually don't think it makes a lot of sense given trees don't grow through the winter anyway. They sort of have a growth season where they suddenly sort of grow up, and the animation probably isn't going to make that much difference, but we'll see how we go with that. Another thing I've done is just work a bit on keyboard shortcuts. So you can now press E to bring up this menu, and press E again to bring up the sort of placement interface, and then E again to get into the detailed part of it, and then E again to confirm the placement. So you can just keep hitting E and basically plant a forest very quickly. So now with my continued focus on trying to get the gameplay, the core gameplay sort of working, the next thing to do is to get these sapiens sort of depending on the food that they're growing and stuff now. So I need them to actually, there needs to be some impact for them if they're starving, if they don't get enough food. And what's ultimately going to happen is they're going to leave the tribe if they don't get fed. And the food will also drive why people end up joining your tribe. So the idea that I have for that is basically that you're going to get sort of random wanderers coming through that might join your tribe, as well as restricting like how often the female sapiens will get pregnant, and whether they have children or not. So basically if they're hungry and they're starving, they're not going to have any children. But if they're well fed and they have a partner, or there's other male sapiens in the tribe, then they'll get pregnant and have kids. And all of the pregnancy and kids stuff is currently broken because I broke it when I re-implemented all of the kind of initial starting tribe selection stuff. So that's the first step, is probably just to get pregnancy working again, and also maybe to get them dying of old age and leaving the tribe if they're starving. So that's kind of where I'm at, and we'll see how I get on with all of that. Okay, so I've made some good progress with some of that stuff. We've got kids again, we've got women can be pregnant, and they can also become pregnant in the game. So in this family, we have a pretty sort of typical family, I suppose, with mum and dad and 2 kids, and that's fine, and that could happen before. But I actually decided that the way I was doing that was a bit simplistic. So what I was actually doing was basically pairing up male and female sapiens, and then potentially they might have 0 to 4 kids or something, or the mum might be pregnant, and the kids would have sort of a mother ID and a father ID, and so then the idea was that in the game they would then sort of hang around both of these parental figures, and I just decided that was a bit too simple. So now we've got this concept of relationships. I'll show you a bit more of it later, but here's a different tribe where there's actually two females and a bunch of kids, and they are all assigned to these females, but there's no fathers here. So you don't know what's happened, why they've ended up like this, but it's a more interesting sort of dynamic, and it's something that you could sort of pick this tribe and try to see how you get on with so many kids and only 2 adults. But so this is quite unlikely. It is more likely that you would have children if you had both male and female sapiens. And here's like a couple that don't have any kids as well. So there's lots of different sort of options. But the way that the the relationships are assigned is that the kids actually will get, a high relationship score with their mother, obviously, and then any relationships that their mother has will actually impact the relationships that the kids have. So basically, if the mother has a bunch of close friends or a partner or anything like that, then the kid will also sort of treat them more like a guardian in sort of kind of a flexible way. So it's like the genetic father doesn't really matter. It's more a matter of how much the father's been hanging around, whereas that there is a strong bond between mother and child. And I think this is going to work quite well. We'll have to see how it all plays out. Okay, so I found this tribe just up here that's got 2 males, 2 females, and 3 kids. So that's kind of a nice diverse tribe that could be kind of interesting. So we'll lead this and see what we've got. So the next thing that I've added is that it actually displays the relationships in here. So you can see that Nina is Lily's mother, and then she's got 2 siblings, which she's not great friends with, as it turns out. So this won't be displayed like this. This is sort of a debug menu, but I think that there will be some way to see relationships in the game. So for now, it's just like this, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, so these sort of relationship trees are all assigned when the tribe is created on that screen just before, and it will influence sort of how they behave, is I guess the idea. And in particular, kids are going to basically, so Akisi is probably Nina's partner. So if we find Akisi, Nina, Akisi's got 96 score there, so they're very strongly bound, and then sort of friends with these other 2 as well, and who's we will look at Akisi. So they've got high relationship scores too, not exactly the same. And yeah, it's super interesting. I still haven't really decided how exactly this is going to work. I think that assigning a single score per sapien is just not going to be sufficient. It's nice and simple for now, so I'll probably see how far I can get with that. But there's just so many complexities in relationships, and a single score just doesn't even come close to kind of representing reality. I'd quite like to have a few things like sort of respect and authority, to have tribe leaders and stuff, and also to have, I guess, you've got family relationships which are kind of different from friendships as well. And you've got sort of desire. One thing, people have been asking, are there going to be same-sex relationships? I think my goal with this is to try to just I don't want to have sexual relationships in the game. I don't think that that's necessary, and I think that if a female becomes pregnant, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. I don't have to explain why, as long as there has been some contact with the male sapien. I don't think that I need to really go beyond that. So if there's sort of some males in the tribe, you don't necessarily know who the father's going to be, and that's quite realistic as well. People didn't know. So I don't think that I need to simulate relationships in such a way that it even becomes something I need to address, but I guess we'll have to wait and see a bit. So I do have a little bit more work to do on relationships. I need to make it so that kids actually get assigned relationships when they're born, and they really just carry on with trying to get the tribe to grow organically over time. So that's probably the main focus. But I might also flesh out the relationship system a little bit more. I don't want to add too much complexity at this point, but it would be nice if it was a little bit dynamic, and perhaps if the relationship scores had some impact on how they interacted and stuff. Their only interaction at the moment is waving, and it may stay that way for a bit longer yet. But man, I'm really looking forward to adding a few more interactions. But anyway, we will continue on and see what happens next. So what I've ended up working on is making the kids actually get assigned relationships when they grow into fully grown children from the sort of baby stage. So when that happens, they get assigned variants of the mother's relationships, just the same way as what was happening in that initial kind of tribe selection screen. So with the kids having relationships, once they then grow into adults, they can know who their parents are and who they're biologically related to, and also whether they've got potential partners and mates to then have children of their own, which is really cool. So now that kids can have kids, we can actually have tribe growth. So this is by far the furthest that I've got with Sapiens. I've now got about 15 or maybe 16 or 17 Sapiens, and they've all descended from the first sort of handful that I had. And yeah, I basically had 3 females and one male to start with. And so I guess technically they're all sort of half related. There are some issues with all of that stuff in this, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, we'll just have to figure our way through that. But yeah, overall, it's going really well. The playtesting has gone exceptionally well. The performance is still good, even with this number of Sapiens. The overall feel of how the sort of game is sort of progressing is good. It needs refinement, it needs balancing, but it's pretty good. One thing so right when I was first recording this video, I thought that I'd be basically making them sort of leave the tribe because they were starving, and as it turns out, as you can see, there is really no problem getting plenty of food with the farming system the way that it is. And so for me to really even test that, I need to sort of balance the game up a bit and make it a bit more challenging, but it certainly allowed me to test growing the tribe, which was a big part of what I wanted to do. And really it actually feels like a game now. For the first time, it really feels like there is a goal of growing your tribe. That's one of the major goals that I've always thought was going to be part of a key gameplay mechanic, and it's here and it works, and it's actually fun. I really enjoyed building this little settlement here, and so there's plenty of work to do, plenty of content and stuff to add. But I think before I sort of focus on adding content, I'm going to really just solidify that this whole sort of first hour or two of gameplay. There are, as I said, there are issues with the food being too easy, and part of that is that they can always wander sort of way over, quite far away and pick fruit that's quite a long way away. And there's plenty of fruit trees around, so what I'm actually hitting is limitations in the pathfinding. So even over here, sometimes the land in here might get unloaded on the server. So what happens then is that they fail to find a path through that unloaded area, and that was always something I knew was going to be something I needed to resolve. So I think that's probably next on my to-do list, is to sort of resolve that and make it so that they can either load the terrain as they go, or sort of break the path up into multiple kind of segments. I'm not too concerned about it. I just it's probably the next thing I need to do. So a really cool thing about where I'm at now is that I'm actually going to be choosing what I'm going to be working on based on playtesting sessions. So this is the way that I developed the blockheads as well, is at a certain point you've got a playable game, and really it's a lot more fun to sort of just have a playtesting session. Maybe it's only a 10-20 minute playtest session, and just jot down what I think is most important to work on next, and jot down any bugs that I find, and then sort of go through those items over the next week or two until everything's sort of tidied up and done, and then sort of repeat the process. And as you go on, your playtest sessions get longer and longer, and the amount of bugs and issues and things that you want gets shorter and shorter, and it's just a really nice way to kind of progress. So I'm quite excited to be at that point now, and I do have sort of longer term things still to do on the to-do list, but going through all those long term things one by one without doing all the playtesting in the middle is not probably a good approach. And I really find that playtesting as much as possible is really important. And of course, once I get to the point where I've found a lot of the major sort of issues, I'll start rolling out playtesting to a few other testers too. And so, yeah, I'm planning to sort of start the alpha testing process probably early next year, where I'll just be sending it out to 1 or 2 people to start with, and then slowly adding new people to that list. So that's pretty exciting, and it's also really cool that I'm still on target. I was always aiming to get to sort of alpha playtesting around about the end of this year. It might be a month or two later, but I'm basically on target for a release still late next year or possibly early 2021. So anyway, I will leave it there for now, and yeah, it's very exciting, and we'll see what I end up working on next time. Cheers.